Welcome to the Pathway for this week. We have finished chapter 14 of Matthew, and we're into Matthew 15, where we see today Jesus approaches two groups of people very differently. So first up was these Pharisees, who he calls hypocrites, and then second was this Gentile woman who has this chance to demonstrate her faith. And I was kind of laughing internally at the end of Chad's message when he told us to, approach God like man's best friend, and I'm thinking, what is it? What does that have to do? Oh, because the woman who was showing her faith was being referred to as a Gentile dog, and yet she continued to pursue God, to worship God. So kind of weird to think that my takeaway from Matthew 15 might be, I want to act like a dog. But wasn't that a perfect picture of how to continue to pursue God? Like every time he walks in, we're excited to see him. That whatever he wants to do today, well, that's what I want to do today. And I love that picture. Because when you back it up to the Pharisees, if you keep that picture in your mind, how much you love God like that, you back up to the Pharisees, and Jesus uses this word in chapter 15, verse 7 to describe them. He calls them hypocrites. Now, we're familiar with that word. If we use it against somebody, it's usually when we're upset. But Explorer number 2 on the Pathway Guide asks us, what does the word hypocrite mean? And why do you think Jesus chose that word to describe the scribes and Pharisees? So as I thought about that, sometimes it's easier for me to use it in a sentence than to give an actual definition. And so I turned back to the passage because I think the next verse is actually Jesus using Isaiah to define it. He says, "These people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me." So as we wrestled in the message and as we work through this passage with where are my priorities or my preferences overpowering God's principles, Chad gave us this chart of trying to think between legalism, where I'm so overly focused on extra rules made by man, or antinomianism, which means against law. There are no laws. We do whatever, and God understands. How do I find that happy middle ground, which is I want to follow God's commands, not just because I'm here to check boxes and try to pass a test or whatever, but because I love God, because I can't wait to see what God wants to do today, without elevating my own preferences to the level of God's commands. For me, that's been a challenge. I think in my own life, it is easy for me to discover, well, I know God says this, and so I think this, this, and this, and then to lump those all together. So for me, it's been helpful to think through, I don't ever have to back down from something God has commanded. If he's put it in his moral law, if it's something that he's asked us to do, I never have to be ashamed to stand firm on what God calls a command. And then that gives me more flexibility and a softer heart towards the other pieces as we try to figure out how to live that out in our lives. So that's something I'm still working on, I'm still praying about, but I think that's the difference between a hypocrite and what we're trying to be today. So as you end this video, as you spend time in prayer, as you spend time in life, think about yourself, I guess kind of like that golden retriever, not just honoring God with your lips while living your life however you want, but focused on loving him, that your heart is close to him. And we'll see you back next week.